Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our publishing and coaching services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Mark Anthony Tierno, author of the Maldine book series. Mark, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
Are you ready to get started?
Ready and waiting.
All right, question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
The main one I would give would be write your passion. Probably the worst piece of advice I heard from an actual big professional author was, I think it was Orson Scott Card, but he said to go and write the market. The market will change before your book's finished. And so I would say whatever passion, whatever it is in there that you can't wait to get into print, that's what you should write, because you'll be going 110% on that. It'll come out a lot better, and then you have to find your audience and your fan base.
And what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
All of it. The main part going against you is the publishers in general won't talk to the talent directly. They prefer to talk to agents. Agents won't talk to you if you're unproven, so you have this catch-22 situation going on. You have the agents, especially in fantasy and sci-fi, which is what I do, is I found out the hard way is half of them go, oh, your fantasy, that's a specialty, we don't handle that. And then the other half of them go, they don't like handling you unless you're already established, but if you're already established, then do you really need them? And so the main problem is finding that way in, and one way in, of course, has been with the explosion of ebooks and self-publishing and stuff, that you can try to use that and hopefully get noticed by the big guys out there.
And then for your books, did you go the traditional route, or did you publish them yourself?
Both. I started out going through a traditional publisher that is now thankfully out of business. They were called Publish America, and their idea of marketing amounted to how to scam the talent. They would go things like, we're going to a book show, we can get your book out there if you buy 5 copies of your own book or pay $60 or something. Or, hey, we'll put and this one actually made the news, we'll put your book before J.K. Rowling herself to look over if you buy 5 copies of your own book. But no one told J.K. Rowling that, and she ended up suing them for accosting her on the street. So I started with that, and then when I found out they were a bunch of no-goodniks, with the help of some other mentoring I got, I dropped them, got some better covers drawn. A couple of friends of mine are fantastic artists, and I sort of tiptoed into the world of ebooks. And pretty much how I did that under advice again is I did a fictitious business name. That's $60, and you can have one done. I became Vault of Knowledge, so I had something to get an ISBN under, and voila, I got my own books out as ebook. Hoping again to use that at least for the next step.
Well, let's talk a little bit about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that worked well.
Well, I've been spending about the past year and a half basically trying to find what works, and I found what doesn't work. Lately, I figure I can get a lot more attention by getting actual interviews, whether it be the written kind of interviews that appear on people's websites, or actual podcasts, for instance, like this, or radio, or whatever. I think it's a lot better. You have more of an immediate audience when you're out there talking and there's people listening. On the other hand, I did try out the take an ad out on Facebook and that sort of stuff. But the problem with that is anyone who's ever, you watch your Facebook stream go by, there'd be like 50 posts go by and you'd catch me with the first 10. So that gets lost in the shuffle. And then if you do the ads where it's a bidding war, you could find yourself putting out more money than you will bring back in the book for little return. So the best so far I have, and I'm still trying to tweak things, is if you can find interviews, because you have a guaranteed audience at that point, and of course book reviews. If it's a professional book reviewer or one blog at a time, book reviews also get noticed because they're up there a lot more constantly as well.
Yeah, you bring up some great points with that, because I think one of the best organic strategies, especially for people that's starting out with a first or second book, is to get the interviews on websites and also on podcasts. That's a strategy that I didn't even utilize really until after I was already publishing my own books for about a year. And it's such a game changer because you can get such great exposure. And the most important thing is it doesn't cost you anything. The only thing it's going to cost you is an investment of your time.
Yeah, I found, again, I was experimenting last year because I knew the first year I expected to lose money because it was a learning experience. And I found places like they had these deals on the website, will put your ad up, and it didn't allow me to put a graphic up, and it ended up, I found out, was basically a one-line entry in a catalog with about 100 other entries. And, well, that's a waste of money. And then the Facebook ads on the side, they're good for people that have a number of products and they're looking for a long-term repeat customer. If you have one product that you're trying to get $3 back for, and it's the one book, you are going to actually lose more money taking out those ads.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about your favorite book. So what was your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
Oh, there's so many of them, some of which some people may find a bit obscure. I like Dune, of course, and that made me not be afraid to write the long epic. There's a little book by A.E. Van Vogt called Slan. That was written maybe like 50 years ago or so, and that had a different take on the whole psychic thing and evolving humanity, all that stuff. I've lost count of the number of books that I've read in my lifetime, and there are just too many I like. And every time I read a book, even from when I was like in 7th grade, I'd take a look at say, oh, I like the way he wrote this way, or how he handled that scene, and just store it away in the back of my mind. And that's actually how I learned to write, was by learning how to read. And over time, I just accumulated enough of those little mental notes from all the different books I've read. But if I had to narrow it down to one book, oh man, I really couldn't. There's so many great ones out there.
What about your most current book?
The most current one I've read, I was actually rereading one of my own books, Maldine 6. And every time I do that, I have this sort of dichotomy of mind. There's the part of me that's the writer and critical, and there's the part of me that turns into the fanboy. And for a minute, I go like, hey, wow, this is a pretty good book. I wonder who wrote it. And I pause for a second and go, oh, yeah. And it's a great, two-minded thing to have, because it reminds me that, hey, okay, it may be worth it for me to keep on pushing, if this is from the point of view of other people reading it.
And for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
Albert Einstein once said, imagination is more important than knowledge. And then that, I think he's really right, because there are things that you can do with imagination that just, they're mere knowledge you gained out of books. Well, that's a good start, but it won't get you elsewhere. It won't get you to other worlds. It won't get you to imagining and creating the sort of things that people like Einstein and his ilk have done. Imagination is key to not only any good writer out there, but any good physics person, I have a degree in physics myself, and to any good researcher, to anybody that literally wants to reach for the stars, imagination is more important than knowledge.
Well, Mark, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
My website is www.maldene.com. That's MALDENE.com. Everything I have centered on there, contact information on the book, other places where I'm found, on Amazon, everything else, all that one website you'll find.
Well, Mark, thank you again for being a guest on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thank you. It's been fun being here.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how to get your book published with a proven system that works, grab a free copy of my book at getpublishedpodcast.com.